The event known as Operation Nightfall saw the systematic termination of the Jedi Order, which threw its surviving members headfirst into a galaxy that no longer trusted them. Hunted down and persecuted by the very beings they had once protected with their own lives, survivors were forced to endure the changes that quickly overtook the galaxy. Jedi Knights and everything regarding their practices were outlawed all across the galaxy, as the now Emperor of the Galaxy does away with the Republic, which once stood proudly as the center of all galactic affairs. Many survivors of the Order were forced to forsake the ways of the Jedi in exchange for their survival in a galaxy where any sentient would turn them into the authorities just to avoid any association with the beings that were essentially accused of treason. Welcome once again, my friends in the Force, as we take a look at another piece of history found in Legends lore, diving into the life of surviving Knight Jennir, the Jedi Peacemaker, and the events that brought him into assuming this kind of mantle in the first place. Our story of legend comes from the Dark Times and Blue Harvest comic series, respectively. Jennir through the surface was seen as no more than an ordinary Jedi, who like many of his kind found himself thrusted into combat once the Clone Wars started and shook up most of the galaxy following the first battle of Geonosis. Jennir was a general stationed on New Plimto and in command of his own clone forces by the time Order 66 was issued. Jennir had survived the initial commencement of what we would know as the Great Jedi Purge. Following the betrayal of his troops, Jennir initially remained on the planet and banded together with a group of surviving separatists, the same group which Jennir had been stationed there to confront. Throughout the course of the story, Jennir would take it upon himself to aid the Nassarian Bomo Greenbark, one of the surviving separatists, in finding his family who had been sold into slavery by the Empire, who had just conquered Greenbark's homeworld of New Plimto. Their quest had led them to the star system known as Orvax 4, which has been described to be the living hell of the galaxy for any slave sent there. Once they had arrived, Jennir and Bomo came across an underground cage filled with Nassarians who had been taken from New Plimto. However, Bomo's family was nowhere to be found. It is revealed to us by an enslaved Nassarian that there had been a struggle prior to the two coming across the enslaved Nassarians, and where the slavers had attempted to retrieve Greenbark's daughter, in which his wife had resisted, with her perishing as a result, with the slavers taking Bomo's daughter anyway. Jennir had later implemented much of his Jedi training to uncover the whereabouts of Greenbark's daughter, which took him the better part of the afternoon to find that information out. Jennir's investigation had led him to the residence of a Chagrian male by the name of Orso Mito, who according to Das was the slaver who sold Greenbark's daughter, promising to become the other person's problem instead of his if he gave him the information he wanted. Jennir is successful in extracting a name, Dezono Kwa, who according to the Chagrian was a regular customer of his, and he was also a male human. Once Jennir had all the information he wanted, he still held the Chagrian at blaster point, a part of the mission he had not prepared himself for. Who was to say that Chagrian would not alert Dezono of Das's efforts, or the fact that he now knew who he was? Jennir weighed the thought of what he was about to do in his mind. The life of Bomo's daughter for the life of a slaver. In Jennir's mind there was only one choice, and shot the Chagrian at point blank. Jennir had not given himself the proper time to process the severity of his actions, but oddly enough he felt a strange sense of calm right after, as if the very decision of what he had done had been weighing down on him, regardless of what the end result could have been. That weight had been lifted. Springing back into action, Das reveals to Greenbark and the rest of the crew of Dezono's whereabouts, reaching his residence. Jennir had finally come face to face with the person who had purchased Greenbark's daughter. The man goes on to say that to go through this much trouble just for one youngling, she really was something special. There is a brief pause, to which Greenbark quickly adds, "What do you mean, was?" Dezono revealed that Bomo's daughter had also perished, like the others Kwa had purchased over the years. Jennir was absolutely shocked by this. Why buy a child just to kill her? To which this Limo responds, "Because I could," and further revealed that the intent was to eat the young Nassarian child, which he had already done before they had arrived. Jennir did what had to be done without a second thought. This This action had caused a rift between the relationship of Greenbark and Das, as Greenbark felt that Jennir had taken the only thing he had left, which in a sense was his revenge for what happened to his family. Jennir had done what he did in order to burden himself with what he had done, and for that burden not to land on Greenbark, but perhaps this was not Jennir's call to make. After these events, Das Jennir was searching for a new clearer path in the galaxy, which led him to the world of Telerath on the small island of Nolia. Looking for a way to make a living in an honest manner, Jennir took a job that he knew he could stomach. Das was approached by a human woman who was looking for some muscle in order to handle a gang of slavers who had apparently been terrorizing the town, a job fit for a Jedi. However, it is further revealed that this woman was not being completely honest with Jennir. Das had come to find out by the locals themselves that there was a group of spicers also residing in the small town, confirming that there was in fact a second gang, with the woman who had hired him in the first place being in league with the spicers themselves. Armed with this knowledge and a blaster on his side, Jennir went to confront the slavers like he had confronted the beings responsible to what happened to Greenbark's family. Also, a little known fact about the Chagrian slavers on this planet was that they did not carry any sort of long-range weapons whatsoever, adhering to what they called the sword law. However, Jennir was not armed with a sword, as it was never meant to be a fair fight. As a Jedi, Das adhered to the principles and laws of the Republic, protecting the innocent as a peacekeeper. But without the law, without the Republic, Das Jennir would become a peacemaker instead. Jennir would later deal with both gangs in his own way by making them aware of one another, which resulted in a massive battle that spilled out into the very town that Das was looking to protect. Once again springing into action, this time with his own lightsaber in hand, Jennir looks to protect the innocents he had inadvertently put in harm's way, with the Force as his most powerful ally by his side. From this point further, we have no clear indication as to where Das Jennir would end up in the galaxy as he reached the later years of his life, but I would like to know, what are your guys' thoughts on Das Jennir, a Jedi who despite their strict indoctrination managed to compromise those beliefs and not lose themselves to the dark side? I think every decision that Jennir made was made with the intent to burden himself with the harder decisions, not necessarily being an inherently bad individual, but he sure did his best to burden himself with the harder decisions instead of those who were around him. That will do it for this video, my friends. If you had stayed tuned in until the end of this holo recording, I just want you to know that I am extremely grateful for your continuing support of the channel. Stay safe, my friends, and may the Force be with you always.